Welcome to the Organizepreneur podcast, the ultimate podcast for female entrepreneurs looking to supercharge their business. I'm Aldreama Harper, host of the Organizepreneur podcast. I'm also a business organizing strategist and coach, where I specialize in helping solopreneurs, freelance professionals, and service-based providers. This is to ignite, build, and transform your business dreams into reality. If you're feeling overwhelmed, struggling to manage clients and tasks, and worried about things slipping through the cracks, you're in the right place. With my signature framework, not only are you able to get your time back and get on track, but also turn your passion and hard work into a sustainable and profitable venture. And so I help female entrepreneurs to turn their new or existing businesses into a thriving, sustainable dream business that creates more freedom, more time, and more profit. Welcome to the episode. So today we're going to be talking about something that, well, let me just go ahead and give it a title. So it's called The Power of Decisiveness in Business. Okay, the power of decisiveness, can't get that out, in business. And so it was actually inspired by a scripture that I was reading in my quiet time. And so that scripture is from 1 Kings 18:21. And here's what it says. It says, "And Elijah came near to all the people and said, 'How long will you go limping between two different opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him.'" So I got to tell you that when I read that, I knew that it was something that I really needed to hear, but I wasn't sure how it was going to tie into my day from a practical standpoint. So after my quiet time, I will normally go and, review my calendar. At the beginning of the day, it's something that's a part of my normal routine. I have my quiet time. I look at my calendar, look to see, what are some things I'm going to be doing during the week? What does my calendar look like? Things like that. And so when I look at my calendar, I always look to make sure that I have white space on my calendar between appointments and tasks and projects, right? Particularly on Mondays, as I have, what I do is I just kind of have an overview of what my week looks like, right? And so when I did that this particular time, I was noticing something that was like, so my calendar was like, had all of these things that were overlapping. My schedule was loaded down. There was no white space. I had put appointments on my calendar that it actually I started to feel overwhelmed, because these were appointments not so much with clients or with opportunities, to talk to prospects, but it was events. There were events on my calendar that I thought that perhaps I should attend this event, and this is going to help me to move things forward, right? I looked at my calendar and I thought, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed. And I'm sitting there wondering, how in the world am I going to do all of this? How in the world am I going to get stuff done that I had planned, maintain a level of sanity, right, that allows me to have space in between, other things that I plan to do and work on during the week. I had projects that I was working on for my husband. I had content for other things that I'm doing, that I'm co-facilitating, other responsibilities for, with my community, things like that. And I was like, it hit me, and I suddenly felt a level of conviction. And I thought back to the scripture that I had just read. And the thing that stood out to me from that scripture was the question that said, how long will you go limping between two different opinions? Now, let me kind of, bring that down to a practical application. It wasn't that, and it's not that I am deciding on, or I'm trying to make a choice between God and the enemy. But it was more along the lines of limping between all the options that I had given myself, rather than create a path and sticking with what I had decided to do originally. See, those other appointments, well, they weren't appointments, but those other events were not really a part of my original decision that I, a few months ago, had decided I was going to stick with a certain path, a certain type of framework that I was going to use and implement in my business. And those appointments had nothing to do with it. Okay? They had nothing to do with it. They were added things that I decided, okay, well, why don't I try this, and then I will get, more people. I will talk to more people. When, in fact, what my original focus has been to use my podcasting to speak to more people. See, I already co-facilitate a networking event. But then I added these other things. And so the reason I was convicted was because now you're adding all of these other options. So it was more along the lines of let me say it this way, it was more of the limping analogy that hit me. And it was more along the lines of limping where it applies to making or not making decisions, but having choices. So what do I mean by that? So what I mean is I had added some virtual events that I could attend, thinking it was a good idea to do so because that would help me to grow my business. Maybe not. But making a decision to follow a particular path doesn't leave room to waver in your focus. And so wavering between multiple options causes limping, and it slows down your progress, and it impedes on your business growth. So my schedule, my calendar, was a reflection of my wavering focus because of the choices that I felt like I needed to include, but not a decision to pursue a particular path. I created more options. And the difference between a choice and a decision, by the way, is that choices allow for many options, whereas a decision does not. A decision cuts out all other options. All right? In other words, making a decision eliminates those alternative paths. And limping is a result of the indecisiveness of having options, many options. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't have options in your life, but what I am saying is that when you are indecisive, it creates a paralyzing effect of wavering between two options, or other options, and it weakens your ability to be expeditious in your efforts. So when you find yourself in this situation, what should you do? Well, this is what I did, and hopefully this is helpful to you. Well, first thing you should do is to get clear on the direction that you're going to take, right? Now, keep in mind, I said I was clear early on, but here's the thing. Get clear on your direction, the direction that you're going to take, even if it's the wrong direction, because you can learn from it. And what I learned from that was that me attending all of those different events was actually slowing me down. I was not making progress, right? It's like you're starting all over again, right? So when you get clear and you take action, you gain momentum. Even if it's what you may consider the wrong direction, you can still course correct along the way, which is what I had to do. Because when you're decisive, though, you're limping, and it's causing you that horizontal movement instead of moving forward, right? Because you're gaining very little progress. I really hope this is touching somebody. So several things happen when you're limping along, right, in your business. There are missed opportunities. Because here's the thing, what I thought was creating more opportunities was actually going to cause me to miss opportunities, because I'm actually starting all over, right, with new things added to my calendar, not even implementing the things that I said I was going to implement as a result of the strategy I had decided to do. Right? So missed opportunities. The next thing that happens is that your resources are drained. You become exhausted because you're not thinking clearly, because you feel exhausted from all of the stuff and the movement that's happening now that you've created, right? So you miss out on opportunities. You also begin to feel exhausted because you're draining your resources, your time, your energy, all of that. And then you begin to feel stagnant and less confident. And that causes imposter syndrome. You've heard of that, where you're just like looking at what everyone else is doing because they're saying that it's working for them, right? But it may not be the right path for you. Because I'm not saying that those other events was not something that's good or works for a lot of people, but it was causing me to limp. And that's what I got from that, right? And so here's the thing, and I'm going to land this plane. Successful entrepreneurs cultivate habits of being quick in their decision making. They position themselves to adapt swiftly and quickly. That's because they have clarity. And even though we know that the market conditions changes all the time, you have to be really, you really have to be solid on and focused on the path that you're going to take so that you can make those adjustments, even with what you're doing, as far as the path that you're going to take, right? And here's what I mean by that, and I know I need to land the plane, but market conditions changes, but there are certain things that are fundamental to your business, right? Being organized, being clear, right? Making sure that things are in place, even if you have to adapt swiftly to changing market conditions. This is what's going to help you to gain a competitive edge. And the thing is this: success loves speed. And that's the thing that successful entrepreneurs know. They know that success loves speed. And so they have infrastructure. They have things that are fundamental to their businesses. They have things that they have core values that allow them to stick with and have a certain path and not be shaken by so many other things, shiny objects. And that's why it's so important to identify your core values, because it really makes it easier to identify things that's not in alignment, and things that's not in alignment. These are the things that should be automatically eliminated. And so one of my core values is to be fully present in my endeavors, which means that if I decide on a certain path or course of action, I must move intentionally. I must be very intentional, because where my attention is, my intentions will follow. And decisiveness is really about choosing a path and walking with clarity, purpose, and direction. It means that you have the ability to make clear decisions, eliminate alternative pathways that help you to stay focused. And this is where you will see transformation and results, right? And so by resisting the urge to limp between options, choose a path and confidently move toward your goals. So I really hope that this blesses you. I hope that I was able to articulate it in a way that you will understand. I really tried to convey the message to really just choose a path, stick with it, and even if it's not the right path, you can still learn from it. There's really no such thing as the wrong path or failure. I guess I should use that instead, because a lot of us feel like, well, if I go in this direction, then I may fail. And that's what causes you to limp, because you're not making a decision. So stick with a path and move toward your goal. Gain some momentum and confidence and clarity. All right, so that's all I have for you today. Thank you for joining me here on the Organizepreneur podcast. Have an amazing day. Start by listening and subscribing to the podcast. Simply go to organizepreneurpodcast.com. And also check out the freebies available, including a free training at theorganizedpreneur.com. So you ready? Let's go.